Hey guys, it's Kevin Games for Teen Wolf Season 5, Episode 2, Parasomnia, and I was definitely looking forward to this episode. I mean, the premiere I thought was really great, and I really liked that it was a two-night premiere because it gave us a taste of more what was going to happen. Last night's episode was more of, here's some ideas of what's going to happen this season, and kind of put us into the tone of the season, while this episode really felt like the actual season premiere. Like, last night's episode felt more like a prologue, and, tonight's episode felt more like the actual premiere. And I actually thought tonight's episode was better than, last night's episode. I still really love last night's episode, but I thought tonight's episode was so much better. It really got us into this season, and really got us into the truly dark territory we're getting into, which I really did love. So, let's just get into it. There's a lot to talk about. We met some new characters in this episode. We found out some new things, and I definitely really love that. So, we start off where this girl sits by Miss Martin, Lydia's mother, and she talks about her options for college, and, she's not really paying attention to, Lydia's mom, because of the fact that she's reliving these little glimpses of her dreams, and, she confides in her that she has night terrors, and though she usually doesn't remember them come morning, this one she does. Her dream was of this crow tapping on her window in the middle of a rainstorm, and upon further inspection, by the way, the cinematography in this scene was amazing, I have to say. Just the visuals in this scene, so creepy, and I love it. And upon further inspection, she notices something else at her window. She locks the window, tries to get back to sleep, but something has already gone inside. She tries to reclose the window. The chair is pulled out from under her, and she doesn't believe that parts of the dream were fake. And, Miss Martin's trying to tell her, oh, it's just anxiety, you're worried about college and everything. But basically, they weren't fake because the window was sealed shut when she was found on the ground next to the chair. So she gets up to leave, she starts coughing violently, and Miss Martin gets up to help her. Just in time, too, the girl ends up puking black sludge all over the desk, and it's like, what the fuck? Where did that come from? She picks this crow's feather out of the sludge, and that's very strange how it got there. And I thought that was a great way to start the episode. I mean, it really got us into her character, and really made me intrigued to see more of what her character was like. So, Scott, meanwhile, we see, is learning how to basically become a veterinarian. He wants to be a veterinarian after high school, which I kind of can understand because, he is a werewolf, and Dr. Deaton is helping him with that. And he's learning how to administer shots to dogs from animals, and basically, Deaton says that he's little, but his teeth are still sharp, and he'll probably come back later. And Scott gives the dog back to his owner, and goes back to find Deaton examining the nail, and it's a talon from a harpy, and shouldn't be able to steal Scott's power. Only a beta of his making should be able to, but Deaton believes someone is trying to change the rules of the supernatural world. And who that person I think it is that creature we saw last night. And I kind of have some theories about that creature, that I don't think they're saying, but if it's true what I'm thinking, then I think that's really cool. So Stiles, meanwhile, is very suspicious of Theo, and he starts telling his father, his theories that Theo's a werewolf and everything, and I love the scene where Stolinsky's like, your best friend's a werewolf. You have a friend that's a were-coyote. Your girlfriend's a were-coyote. Just go to school. I don't want to deal with this, because I love how he does that. He's so stressed out, and, he doesn't believe him and tells him to go to school, and Stiles notices something different about his father. He doesn't know what it is, though, and they end up doing a backup check on Theo, only to find a speeding ticket, and Malia points out that Stiles has many more tickets than that, and his father got him out of it, and she asks him why he's so suspicious, and I like what Malia says, maybe he's threatened by his good looks and things like that. That was kind of funny. But basically, she asks him why he's so suspicious, and he responds that he remembers Theo, but that the person that came back is not Theo. What I'm personally thinking is that creature we saw last night can take the form of anyone else, and basically is in Theo's body. Theo's not actually there. This is not actually Theo. He has taken the form of Theo to basically get on Scott's good side and eventually turn against him. That's personally what I feel is going on with that. And if that's true, that is going to be the best villain we have seen since the Geats tonight. That is awesome that they're doing that. I can't wait to... If that is what they're doing, that's awesome. And I really feel like that's what's going on there. So Scott arrives at school, Kira meets him at the entrance, they share a kiss, and it seems like everything's good between Scott and Kira in this episode, which I like seeing. I like seeing them together, and as I said, they're definitely trying to get us to like them more, and I thought, it's really good, and I really like that in this episode. Mason, meanwhile, is looking into what attacked him at the end of last season, because of course he doesn't know about the werewolves and everything, so he's trying to do research, and it's kind of a funny scene, because of course, Liam doesn't want to tell him what's going on, but at the same time, Mason's driving him insane with it, and I thought it was kind of funny, so when they get to class, there's this girl that Liam remembers from 6th grade, and he gets kind of nervous, refuses to sit down, and Mr. Yukimura tells him to sit down. He does straight into the weight of chewed gum, which I thought was really funny. He's like, you're just gonna stand there all class? I mean, you can tell how nervous Liam's becoming. This episode, I have to say, they've really integrated Liam into the series very well, honestly. I think here, it's taken us a while, but now that Liam's no longer a new character, I think now they've integrated him in really well, definitely. I mean, I know some people have had a problem with him, but me personally, I think they're doing a really good job with putting him in the series. So, in bio, Lydia and Kira share this silent conversation, and they're confused as to why Scott is in their AP class. They didn't really think he'd be in their, AP class, but apparently it wasn't a mistake, and it turns out that Theo is also in this class, and there's going to be a huge test in the class the next day to basically weed out those who don't belong. They basically have to pass this test, and if they don't get to be in this class. Now, Scott wants to be in this class because he wants to get into the best college biology program in, California. And Kira had no idea about this information, which I thought was really interesting that we saw this with Scott. I will say it does seem kind of abrupt, but, Scott's at at this age now where he needs to decide what he wants to do in his future. And I like that he is making decisions. I thought that was really good that we saw that. And, as I said, it was kind of abrupt, but I thought they handled it really well, definitely. So Liam distracts Mason from the endless barrage of questions by sending him after his soccer team crush, only to find out that the girl with a grudge on him has the locker next to his, and she warns him that she's vengeful, and it's kind of funny, honestly. I definitely feel like we're going to see a lot of stuff between him and this girl. It's honestly kind of funny. I'm predicting right now she actually does like him, but I don't know. Apparently he did something in 6th grade that she still hasn't forgiven him for, so we'll have to see what happens there. So in a different part of the school, the student with night terrors, Tracy, is having hallucinations of black blood flowing out of lockers. A doctor starts to crawl out of a locker, kind of like the doctor we saw with Lydia in Eichen House, last episode, towards her. And just as it's about to reach her, Lydia comes up and pulls her out, and I'm like, okay, this is great. Lydia's going to help her. And it might not just be a dream, though, because there are claw marks in Tracy's locker now. So this is definitely more than just a dream. There's definitely more going on there. I think that definitely is very interesting with what's going on with Tracy. So Theo starts telling Scott and Stiles the story of how he became a wolf, and this was really interesting. I really like that we got into Theo's character in this episode because, this guy's kind of just shown up out of nowhere. It's kind of like, okay, Theo's here. Where is he? What's his story? We pretty much find that out in this episode, and he talks about how he was skating in a neighbor's empty pool, and while I like this story, it doesn't sound legit. Like, I definitely agree with Stiles that I don't think he should be trusted. I mean, just what he's saying, it doesn't sound like the most legit story. Because he talks about how he became a wolf, and he was skating this neighbor's empty pool. It got late and he fell, but the board didn't fall with him. From there, a wolf charged at him, and Stiles wants to know why he didn't become part of that wolf's pack, which I think is a good question. And apparently this wolf was Aiden's alpha, the one that he and his brother Ethan killed, so that was really interesting. So Theo guilt trips Scott about lone wolves not making it and being the same kid from before and, telling him that he can trust him, everything. To me, he just seems really desperate. Like, he is coming across as really, really desperate, and that's not good. I don't trust Theo, okay? I don't trust him, honestly. I don't care that he's trying to make it seem like they can trust him. I don't trust this guy. Nothing about it seems real. Everything seems fake. I don't trust a single thing with him. Everything just seems like he's made it all up. I don't trust him at all, so we'll have to see what happens there. But Scott tells Stiles that they're giving Theo the benefit of the doubt, and Stiles swears that he's right, and so far the track record is 100% when Stiles think that someone's evil, which is true. Whenever Stiles says someone's evil, they're evil. I mean, think about it. Stiles is really smart with that stuff, and I thought that was really interesting. So Lydia questions her mom, and her mom pretty much tells her to just stay out of the whole situation with Tracy, that she should handle it on her own, and that Lydia needs to not interfere with that, and focus more on college and things like that. And I understand that, but, obviously her mom doesn't know about Lydia, being a banshee and everything. She doesn't know about that, so I think that was really interesting, and we saw that. So Parrish examines Tracy's room, and he finds that the skylight is in fact open. He looks through it, and Lydia asks if he sees anything. He lies and says no, even though there are tons of dead crows on Tracy's roof. And that is definitely very interesting. Why these crows are here, we still don't know what that's all about. So Malia's taking her driving test with Mr. Yukimura, and she starts to have flashbacks, and it causes her to go too fast and fail, and Stiles, meanwhile, which that definitely is very strange that happened, definitely, because, we know that Theo, of course, had, driving tests and had tickets and things like that, so definitely there's something going on there, we just don't know what it is yet. So, Stiles is broken into the office to steal Theo's transcripts and finds out that his father's signatures are different. They're not the same. And still, no one thinks that there's anything wrong with that. And honestly, they need to listen to Stiles. I understand that, Scott makes the final decision. I get that. But honestly, he has good points here, and he storms out, and Liam is, the only one that wants to help him, which I thought was kind of funny that Liam's, the only one. Even Malia isn't going to help him out. And again, I get their points. I get what they're saying, that, Stiles needs to not, be as obsessed as he is and not think so hard about it. But again, it seems very shady what Theo is saying. I don't trust him, honestly. Stiles' accusations, I agree with. I do. Honestly, I do. So, Lydia and Parrish, I love these two together, I gotta say right now. They are getting these two together. The chemistry they have in this episode, these two better get together by the end of the season, because they're hitting it off. They're going to work together on figuring out what's going on with Tracy, and that's great. I love them working together last season, and I love they're working together again this season. That is awesome. I love that. So, Stiles and Liam stalking is finally proving fruitful, because Theo wanders into the woods at night, and Liam realizes that he was supposed to meet Mason at the school. He promised him that. And I loved this scene here. Whoever portrays Liam, he gave an amazing performance here. Really, he did. He was great in this scene. And, Stiles is trying to persuade him to tell Mason, but Liam's worried because, he doesn't know how he's going to react, and he doesn't really know what's going to happen. He ends up missing the trap set, falls in, and his phone falls out, and when he picks it up, he notices this leaf earring in the mud, which is really strange, and Liam and Stiles find out that Theo is really sad, and throwing flowers in the river in order to honor his sister who just died, and Stiles realizes that they have to leave, but Theo's already noticed them and confronts them about it, and basically tells them that they can trust him and that he wants to be in their pack and everything. It just seems like a load of shit to me. I don't believe what he says. Again, he's just coming across as very, very shady. I'm sorry. I wish I could trust this guy, but I can't, honestly. Everything that Theo's saying is just so shady. I can't trust him because of that. I wish I could, but I just can't. So, Tracy's father, meanwhile, he's boarded up the skylight, but he has to leave her alone in the house, and he promises that nothing will happen to her, which obviously means something is about to happen to her. That means that she's in danger, and she needs to be prepared, and that she has to get out of there. Obviously something bad's gonna happen to her, and that's really interesting. So back in the woods, Scott catches up, and this whole arc with Tracy kind of reminded me of the way they set up Malia, just the way they kind of set up her character, very similar to Tracy, especially at the end of the episode, and I'll talk about that. So Scott catches up with Stiles and Liam, and embarrassed, Stiles tries to leave, but his Jeep won't turn on, and I love this scene between Scott and Stiles, I have to say, because him and Scott start to talk about why Stiles doesn't trust anyone. Scott talks about how he didn't trust Derek, Kira, Malia, Liam. He didn't trust any of these people. And honestly, I agree what he says. He says that the reason he doesn't trust anyone is because Scott trusts everyone. It's true. Scott never, has any doubt about anyone, honestly. When was the last time Scott was genuinely concerned about someone being in his pack? There was not one time. The closest he's been concerned, I think, is like mentoring Liam. That's the most he's been concerned about that. So Scott is not at all concerned about this, and I like that he brought that up, because honestly, yeah, he doesn't, he trusts everyone, and it honestly is kind of annoying, and I like that Stiles brought that up, because Scott needs to realize that not everyone can be trusted. Not everyone is Derek, and he needs to understand that. Not everyone is Stiles. Not everyone is Kira. Not everyone's Malia. That's just not how it works. There are going to be people you can't trust. Theo is one of those people, and Stiles gets mad, punches his car, and Scott then takes his hand and he heals his hand. So now Scott has these healing powers, which I think is really interesting, because obviously he's the alpha now, so he can do that. And that was really cool, just seeing the different things that Scott can do now he's the alpha. That's something I've always thought was really interesting. I definitely really like that. And that scene I just thought was really crucial. And again, as I said, I've heard rumors that Scott and Stiles are not really going to be the best of friends anymore. And I definitely think they're starting to show that here. They're starting to clash a lot more. They're getting different ideas. Stiles is kind of pissed at Scott for trusting everyone. Scott really doesn't see a problem here. And I just thought that was really interesting that we saw that. And I'm very interested in seeing what's going to happen with that, if maybe Scott's going to listen about that, because that was definitely very interesting. And the fact that Scott can heal his hand, that definitely is very interesting with these healing powers he has. So Parrish is keeping an eye on Tracy's house, but it's too late. Tracy is just standing in the middle of the street behind his car. Now, how the hell did she do this? I don't understand, because basically, as we know, he boarded up the skylight, so, I mean, obviously she could get out, but that was kind of strange that she just got out like that. So basically, she's right there, and basically, it's kind of a creepy scene that she's just standing there out of nowhere. So Liam finally makes it back to the school, and he's about to go to Mason, but then this black wolf appears, and the only time we've seen a black wolf is when it's been Derek's wolf. So we're thinking, is Derek back possibly? Is Derek going to share something with Malia? Are we going to find out more about the desert wolf possibly? Because, I mean, we know that his conversation is going to come up this season, so I was wondering if maybe we were going to get into that, but that's not what happens here, because it appears in the parking lot behind them. It starts to chase them into the school until Liam growls at it. Mason finally knows, and he doesn't seem a bit scared at all, honestly. He seems like he kind of likes it, and I like seeing that Mason wasn't actually scared, and it turns out this wolf is not Derek, it's actually Theo. So that was definitely very interesting. So we know that Theo is a werewolf, but I just don't think he's all the way legit, I just don't think he is. So Kira and Scott are then making out, but she asks to stop. She stops asking why he didn't tell her about UC Davis, because obviously that's something that she probably should know about. And Scott tells her that it's because he doesn't believe he's smart enough to get in, and she tells him that he is smart enough. And I really like how confident she is and how she thinks he can do this. I mean, I like seeing Scott always doubts himself. That's something that Scott has always done. He always doubts himself. He always thinks that things are not going to go his way. And you know what? I like that Kira's trying to motivate him, tell him, you know what? Things might go your way for once. You need not worry. I'm here for you. And I thought that was really sweet that she did that. And basically they proceed to have sex. The power then goes out all of a sudden, but they don't care. They just proceed to have sex because she was going to turn out the light anyway. So I thought that was kind of funny because, she's about to turn off the light. Power goes out. They're just like, fuck it. We'll have sex anyway. That was really funny, honestly, that we saw that. So Lydia and Parrish enjoy a coffee and a pat on the back that Tracy's all safe. They pretty much think that everything's okay with Tracy, but she's not. Now, of course, Parrish didn't realize that Tracy was outside. He didn't realize that. Basically, she's not, though, because she's in the doctor's place. They shoot her with something, and it turns out that all these night terrors were just her as a werewolf. So it seems in the promos, what they said is that she doesn't understand how she is as a werewolf, why she is the way she is. She can't really control it. This is definitely something where she's not going to remember what she's doing, and that definitely is very interesting to me, and I'm really looking forward to seeing how they further explain that, because that whole storyline is definitely very intriguing. So Stiles is back at his theory board, which is always awesome to see. I always love Stiles at that board, and his dad, basically, Stalinsky tells him that he can't think someone's guilty based on gut feelings, and he needs proof first. And Stiles points out the different thing is that his father isn't wearing his wedding band. That's the thing that's different. And Stalinsky reminds Stiles that a guilty party will always do something wrong. So that was definitely very interesting. However, so Stiles doesn't really have any information right now. However, we see at the end of the episode that we're back at Theo's house. He's interrogating his parents. He holds like a hammer, and they aren't his real parents. We see right away they're not his real parents, and he basically, Stiles' evidence was pretty much real, and he goes to take the hammer and just hits them, and basically, definitely Theo is not to be trusted, and that's basically how the episode ends, and that was an awesome way to end the episode, and I absolutely love that. So let me talk more about this whole Theo situation. As I said, I definitely feel like this is something where this is a creature that can pretty much take the form of anything, and gonna trick Scott. Scott, as Stiles said, he's too, giving, and he's too trusting. Honestly, Scott trusts everyone. There's never been someone that Scott doesn't trust. And I think, honestly, Scott needs to listen to him. He's not going to, because it's Scott we're talking about. Scott's not going to change the way he does things, but Stiles does have a point there, and I think definitely this is going to cause Scott and Stiles to break their friendship up. You can understand why that happened, and I think that definitely is going to be very interesting there. Now, is Stiles going to get this information right? Is he going to get more information? Because if he gets more information, he can probably convince Scott that they shouldn't trust this guy, because it's pretty obvious they can't trust Liam. I mean, they can't trust Liam. They can't trust Theo now. And Theo is definitely not Theo. I mean, if Theo really did that, there's no way that that is Theo. I definitely feel like there's something more going on there. What it is, I'm not sure yet, but there's definitely more going on with Theo. I'm just not really sure exactly what it is yet. Scott going into college, I like that he wants to be a veterinarian. I like that Kira's there for him. Do you think that Scott is going to get into UC Davis? I hope he does. The thing with Scott is that I don't think that's the number one thing on his mind right now. I mean, it seems like it is, but in some ways he's kind of hiding it as well, because he's so concerned about him being the alpha and all this that I don't even know if he'll really have time for this. And I can understand why he's not really thinking about it and why he's not that confident about it. But I definitely feel like Kira's going to get more confident, and I think that's really well done. I definitely really like that. So I like that as well. Tracy, this character I love. I love Tracy's character. I think she's going to add a lot to the show, and let's talk about this whole thing with Tracy, because obviously now we know that Tracy is this werewolf, and she doesn't understand, she obviously doesn't remember when she, attacks people, or what happens during the night, because we don't know what happens during the night, but definitely, she's going through these night terrors, it's her as a werewolf, and that definitely is very interesting. So I think Lydia is definitely going to look more into this, because if she still sees Tracy going through this stuff, she's definitely going to try to get Parrish to look into this, and that definitely is going to be interesting. And I definitely feel like that is going to lead us to what Parrish is exactly, which I think is definitely very interesting, and I like seeing that definitely. Now that Liam has told Mason his secret, do you think that things are going to be better between them? I mean, now we're going to just have to see how Mason deals with this. I mean, it seems like he's okay with it, but we'll have to see how Mason deals with this. Maybe Mason's going to be able to help Liam control him being a werewolf. I definitely feel like that's something that he's going to help him out with, because now he's going to be able to see, now that Liam's a werewolf, I mean, please, I really hope that Liam doesn't try to get Scott into his pack, because Mason is not a werewolf. He is a human, and he's no use to them, honestly. If Liam tries to get Mason into their pack, he is no use for them. So I hope that Liam doesn't do that. Knowing Liam, though, I feel like he would do that, because the way what Stiles said, that Scott pretty much trusts everyone, if he has Scott to do it, he's probably going to let him in anyway, but Mason isn't anything, so I honestly feel like that could be really interesting for Scott if they go through that. I feel like that's something that Liam would do, is possibly ask Scott to, help him out there. What's going on with these driving tests? Because obviously Malia failed this driving test. She had these weird flashbacks. What was that whole thing about? I'm not really sure yet. I don't know really what they're trying to show there, but that definitely is very interesting. I'm just not really sure what's fully going on with that whole situation. There's definitely more going on there, but I'm just not really sure what it is. I just really hope that Stiles tries to convince them that he is right and that he knows what he's doing. But you know what, guys? I am very confident about this season now. I mean, I was very confident in last night's episode, but this episode gave us a much more clear idea of where we're going. We're definitely going into really dark territory, which I really do like seeing. We're definitely starting to get more into, like, how these attacks, you know, happen and everything. Apparently next week, Malia is supposed to get more information on the Desert Wolf, so that's going to be interesting, because obviously she's going to find out that that Desert Wolf's her mother, which I'm definitely looking forward to seeing how that whole thing turns out, because that's something that I was looking forward to, you know, at the end of last season. I really hope we get some conclusion to that this season. That's going to be awesome to see what happens there. But overall, guys, absolutely love this episode. I thought this was better than the first episode. Honestly, I did. I can't wait for next week's episode. Very happy they did a two-night premiere, because the first episode didn't really felt more like a prologue and less like an actual episode. This felt more like, you know, the Teen Wolf that I love. Even though I love the first episode, the second episode I did feel was just a little bit better. I still really did love this episode. It was just, you know, a smidge better than the first episode, honestly. Just a little bit better. And, just because we're getting into the plots more, we know more what's going on. Also, Lydia and Parrish, do you think they're setting up a romance between these two? Because I personally think they are. I really like these two together. Liam and this girl from 6th grade, what's going to happen with that? Obviously, they're going to clash. There's something he did in 6th grade. We don't know what it is, but I definitely feel like there's going to be some clashing between them. And that's going to be really funny. If they do that, that could be really funny. I definitely like that. And I'm someone that really likes the characters on the show. I know people think the characters are stupid, but honestly, guys, I love the characters on the show. I genuinely do. I care for them, and I don't look at Teen Wolf as just some dumb show on MTV. I mean, I was reading this article from the AV Club. They gave last night's episode like a D+. They're thinking way too into it, honestly. They need to think that this is a mysterious show. They're not going to tell us everything, and I like that. I like how mysterious this episode was. I like how we don't really know everything that's going on yet, but that's basically my review. Hope you guys enjoyed. Let me know what you guys thought of this episode, and I will see you guys in my next video, which will be for another classic movie review, and I will see you guys for that. Okay, bye.